So, welcome to the Caribbean. When we talk about the Caribbean, we are mostly talking about European styles that were brought here. But there is a difference, and we're going to compare and contrast this with the Federalist style because it's the same idea that people from Europe came over, brought with them their architecture, built buildings, and the local culture influenced what was there or what was able to be built because of the source of materials and the people who live there. And so we're talking Caribbean, we're talking about this part of the world. Oops, I just like posting that. It's a Trunk Bay, which is a national park. St. Thomas. Looks like my PowerPoint's off a little bit. I'm gonna center it just so it's there. We go. So you're gonna see a very large, diverse style of buildings. There's going to be Spanish influence. There's going to be local cultural needs, like these blinds were done because hurricanes. You have to, we saw in the Federalist buildings they had shutters, and they become decorative in the South where we don't really get hit that much by um, hurricanes that often, or winter. Winter's not that mild, but in the Caribbean, they're constantly bombarded by hurricanes. And so it changes elements of the architecture. And just, stone is used. In fact, if you're watching, I saw them build a house in Jamaica, and they use concrete block because of the hurricanes. And so here you see there is Federalist style, but look at the colors. Look at this kind of frilly, pom-pommy kind of plant that's part of the architecture, right? We've got these big porches because there's even more sun here than there was in the South. The vibrant colors of the Caribbean, and the flora starts to work its way into the detailing. Bright saturated colors inside and out. I don't know why that's in there. To church. And so a lot of the bright colors obviously come from the coral reefs that surround the islands. Just more examples of this European architecture, but these very Caribbean colors. A lot of wood, obviously. And so we still see a lot of Federalist architecture that was built in the Caribbean, just modified. Bermuda was occupied by the British, and there it is. And, the famous Bermuda Triangle. They're starting to come up with hypotheses for why ships and planes go down. And there's an abundance of methane in this area that comes from the floor of the ocean, and it can sink a ship or make or mess with low flying aircraft. And they think that that could be large releases of methane as the ship was passing overhead could actually cause it to sink. When I was a kid, it was this big mystery. But you see these beautiful, vibrant colors, thick, heavier shutters. A lot of stucco. You can see the concrete block under here. Almost everything's built out of concrete block because of hurricanes. And then stucco, a lot of stucco. And then just these vibrant colors everywhere. Vibrant colors. It's another church. And that's Gothic. Well, it's actually Gothic revival, but it's right. So you're going to see different styles throughout the Caribbean depending on who built the building, because people came to the Caribbean from all over Europe. This is neoclassical, which we haven't talked about yet, but Federalist or colonial. I thought this was kind of interesting because this is a ziggurat, and ziggurats are we didn't talk about ziggurats, but those were religious structures back um, before the Egyptians, sort of the precursor to the pyramid. Because if you cover this over, well, pyramids are stepped like this, but if you cover this over too with material, you can turn it into a complete triangle. Just lots of vibrant colors. I think I have made that point. Another ziggurat. Um, yeah, more neoclassical, federalist, old San Juan. Right, so we see the similarities between the Federalist architecture from the United States and the Federalist architecture in the Caribbean, which San Juan is part of the United States, but all of the Caribbean is not. And so, just some examples of how you can see the parallels. Lots of color. And look, we even have Rococo, Baroque. I can't tell what's going on. Oh, shells. It's Rococo. Old Havana. Lots of neoclassical architecture, lots of Baroque architecture. You can see a lot of Art Nouveau architecture that we haven't looked at yet. This is Art Nouveau. And in Havana, like San Juan, people live in apartments and tenements. And usually there's shops on the bottom, and people live in apartments upstairs when they live in the city. This is an apartment building, and that is done in an Art Deco style. Actually, it looks more like Streamline Modern, but it's associated. Lots of ornate details. That's Art Nouveau. Okay. And so we see that the people who came to the Caribbean and stayed and decided to build buildings did so in their own style that they brought with them. They did not start over, but that in many cases, the colors of the buildings or details were very much influenced by the local weather and the culture. Okay. Hope you enjoyed your trip to the Caribbean. It's always sunny down there. Well, not always, but most days.